In a dramatic and forceful policy shift that is sending shockwave through Kyiv and other European capitals, the administration of President Donald Trump has issued a direct and unequivocal demand to Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelenskyy to immediately re-engage in peace negotiations with the Russian Federation. This significant change in American strategy, moving from steadfast military support to insistent diplomacy, is a direct result of the rapidly deteriorating situation on the Eastern Front, particularly the tightening Russian siege of the strategic city of Pokrovsk. High-level sources within the White House, speaking on the conditions of anonymity, have confirmed that future packages of American military assistance will be directly linked to Ukraine's good faith participations in a renewed round of talks to be hosted in Istanbul, Turkey. The move effectively presents the Ukrainian government with an ultimatum: pursue peace at the negotiating table or risk fighting the Russian army without the critical flow of American weapons. The decision was reportedly finalized in a series of tense meetings in the White House Situation Room over the last 48 hours. President Trump, who has long voiced skepticism about the cost and objective of a prolonged war in Europe, was presented with sobering intelligence assessment about Ukraine's battlefield prospect. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard and Director of the Central Intelligence Agency John Ratcliffe are said to have delivered a blunt appraisal concluding that without a massive and immediate surge in aid that the United States is not prepared to offer, the Ukrainian front lines are at serious risk of a cascading collapse. The intelligence highlighted the severe ammunition shortage, the exhaustion of Ukrainian troops, and the methodical grinding effectiveness of Russia's offensive. The potential fall of Pokrovsk was presented as a tipping point that could lead to the loss of the entire Donbas region and expose central Ukraine to a renewed Russian advance. Faced with this grim picture, President Trump reportedly made the decision that a forced diplomatic settlement, even an imperfect one, was preferably to a complete Ukrainian military defeat and the potential for a wider, more dangerous conflict. The public face of this new policy is Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who has been tasked with conveying the administration's position to allies and to the Ukrainian government itself. In a hastily arranged press conference at the State Department, Secretary Rubio framed the decision not as an abandonment of Ukraine, but as a turn toward pragmatic realism. He stated, "The United States remains committed to a sovereign and secure Ukraine, but we must also face the reality of the situation on the ground. A war of attrition that bleeds Ukraine of its best and bravest, with no clear path to total victory, does not serve the interests of the Ukrainian people, the American people, or global stability. It is time for the guns to fall silent and for diplomacy to be given a real chance. We believe the framework established in Istanbul early in the conflict provides the most viable starting point for a just and durable peace." When pressed by reporters on whether this was an order to Kyiv, Rubio was firm, stating, "We are using the full leverage of the United States to bring about peace. Our expectations have been made crystal clear to President Zelenskyy and his government. The military justifications for this policy shift has been articulated by Secretary of Defense Peter Hegseth." Speaking to journalists at the Pentagon, Secretary Hegseth provided a stark military perspective. "War is about logistics and mathematics," he explained. "Right now, the mathematics of these conflicts are trending in a deeply concerning directions for our Ukrainian partners. The Russian Federation is mobilizing its defense industrial base on a full war footing, and we are seeing the results of that on the front line in places like Pokrovsk. We cannot ask Ukrainian soldiers to hold the line against overwhelming artillery fire without giving them the means to shoot back. And the current supply chain realities make that an unsustainable proportion long term. A strategic pause and a return to negotiations is a responsible course of action to preserve Ukraine's fighting force and its statehood. This perspective from the Department of Defense signals the belief that Ukraine can no longer achieve its maximalist war aims, such as reclaiming all territory lost since 2014, and that a negotiated outcome is the only way to prevent a worse one. The reaction from Kyiv has been one of shock and profound dismay. While there has been no official public statement from President Zelensky's office, sources within the Ukrainian government describe a feeling of betrayal For more than 2 years, Ukraine has structured its entire defense around the premise of robust Western and particularly American support. The sudden shift to conditional aid places President Zelenskyy in an impossible political and military position. Accepting the American demand to negotiate from a position of extreme weakness with Russian troops advancing would be seen by many Ukrainians as a capitulation. It could shatter national morale and lead to intense domestic political backlash. However, rejecting the American ultimatum is an even riskier path. The Ukrainian military is critically dependent on American-supplied artillery, air defense missiles, and other advanced systems. Without a continuous supply, its ability to resist the Russian offensive would degrade within weeks, not months, likely leading to the very collapse the Trump administration seeks to avoid. European allies, especially those in Eastern Europe bordering Russia, have responded with open alarm. Leaders in Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia see the American move as a dangerous appeasement of Moscow that will only embolden further Russian aggression. A senior Polish diplomat, speaking privately, called the decision a historic mistake that dismantled the unified Western response and rewards the aggressor. These nations fear that a settlement that leaves Russian forces in control of Ukrainian territory will simply set the stage for a future conflict after Russia has had time to rearm and regroup. They view Ukraine's fight as their own and believe that a Russian victory there would directly threaten their own national security. This sharp divergence between the American positions and that of frontline NATO allies threatened to create the most serious rift in the transatlantic alliance in decades. In contrast, Turkey has eagerly embraced the American initiative. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's government has long sought to position itself as the primary mediator in the conflict. Turkish officials immediately confirmed their readiness to host the talks in Istanbul and praised the Trump administration's courageous and wise decisions to prioritize peace. For Turkey, successfully brokering a ceasefire would be a major diplomatic victory, elevating its status as a major regional and global power broker. Independent of both Western and Eastern blocs, Moscow has reacted to the news with cautious optimism, portraying the American policy shift as a vindication of its strategy. A spokesperson for the Kremlin stated that Russia has always been open to negotiations based on the reality on the ground. This phrase is widely understood to mean any talks must begin with the premise that Russia will retain the Ukrainian territory it currently occupies. While welcoming the American pressure on Kyiv, Russian officials have made it clear that their military operations will continue unabated. The assault on Pokrovsk and other key areas will not stop, as Moscow seeks to capture as much territory as possible to strengthen its bargaining position before any potential talks begin. Within the Trump administration, the decision is being supported by a wider circle of cabinet officials who emphasize the domestic benefits of ending the war. Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent has argued that the immense financial expenditure on the Ukraine war has contributed to inflationary pressures and that redirecting those funds to domestic priorities is essential for the health of the American economy. He advocates for a peace dividend that would allow for investments in American infrastructures and industries. Similarly, Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick has highlighted the war's disruption of global energy and food markets, arguing that a peace settlement is a prerequisite for restoring stability and lowering costs for American consumers and businesses. This economic argument resonates strongly with President Trump's America First platform and provides a powerful domestic political justification for his foreign policy change. The entire administrative apparatus, including Attorney General Pam Bondi, who oversees sanctions enforcement, and Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, who deals with the refugees and security implications of the conflicts, is now aligned with the new objective, ending the war through negotiations, even if it means forcing a painful compromise upon a key ally. The message from Washington is clear. The era of unlimited support for Ukraine's war effort is over, and the road to any future American aid now runs through the negotiating table in Istanbul. Many of my listeners, like 70%, haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel. And so many of you don't even know that you haven't subscribed. And that is actually what makes the show going. It's almost like you're making a donation to the show. So that's why I ask again and again, because it enables us to grow and grow and grow. And we're going for the long haul here. And listen, If this is your first time listening to Self-Hate Rich, you don't have to subscribe. You guys, your first one's on me. But if you have watched this show before, it's like you are a freeloader now. So all I would ask you is, if you have seen this show before and you like it, help me, help my team here. Hit that subscribe and like button now. And we will continue to build this show for you. That I swear. Thank you to all of you guys who have subscribed. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much. That's all for me for today. I will see you soon. Bye for now.